You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's pay-per-view after show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's pay-per-view after show.
Hello and welcome to a special UFC after show. It is our first ever doubleheader, and it is the UFC's first ever doubleheader. There was 2 fights in one night.
2 shows in one day.
2 shows in one day yesterday. One was in Auckland, New Zealand. That was on Fight Pass. And one was in San Antonio, Texas, and that was on Fight Night, Fox Sports 1. We are going to be covering both of them. My name is Daria Berenato.
I thought it was Daria.
You just pronounce it wrong. You just don't know me. This is George Hermoza.
Hermoza.
That's not happening.
No, just try it. Just try it. Hermoza.
Hermoza. Can't purr.
We'll get
Can't
there.
purr. I'll get there. I will practice it for next time.
Hermosa. Right?
What's with the Z? So Hermoza.
And with that, that's J Tan.
Tan.
Yeah. Tan.
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 Oh,
No.
I think she's probably right. J-Tan.
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 Okay. Anyway, we're going to start off talking about the Fight Pass fights. It was headlined with Mr. James Huna and
Go
why
for
are
it.
you
You
looking
got
at me
it.
like that?
James Huna.
And Miss
Nate Marquardt.
We sit in the trailer and they make fun of my pronunciations, and then we get here and they make fun of how I pronounce their names. I just can't
It's
win.
the Jersey girl thing, partially.
Yes, it is. James Huna versus Nate Marquadt.
Marquardt. Nate Marquardt.
The fight happened
Oh, okay.
in New Zealand.
So
There's a fight happening right now.
And that's the Peanut Gallery. Shout out to
you all.
Steven behind the boards there.
Anyway,
Yeah.
some great fights, some not so great fights. We're going to start with Hatsu Hioki versus Charles Olivera. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm not talking on the show
run with it.
anymore.
No, you know, let's first kind of broad strokes here. Like you said, this is the first time that the UFC has tried to do or has done 2 shows in one day, and it's because of the time difference that they're able to do that. You know, I think that's one of the only scenarios geographically in the world where you can get away with that. I remember seeing stories on CNN where you know, the first parties for New Year's Eve, when New Year's Eve happens, you know, they first report from down under, Australia and New Zealand.
Right.
And then, you know, as the day goes on, you work your way up to, you know, throughout, I guess, Europe and Asia, and eventually to the U.S.
Little US.
And I think that's going to be kind of the model we see for the times that they do these 2 shows. Either that or they'll broadcast one. I wonder if they'll ever have to broadcast at the same time. Come to think of it, like if they do Berlin, you know, and then somewhere in no, because it'll be 8-hour difference.
There would still
at least.
there would still be a time change.
Yeah.
So
but
whether it be pre-recorded or not, I don't know.
So this show, this was the first time that they hit New Zealand. They were in Auckland, and of course the crowd was really hot for that. And they had a lot of local guys that they're building up. James Huna, you mentioned, Soa Palelei, Robert Whitaker, who won tough smashes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Clarification on that. Vic Gruchik, who was on the last season of Ultimate Fighter, and he is Australian, if I remember correctly. So it was designed for the locals to see their stars. And the big one, there was 2 of them that really stood out to me. One actually, in terms of fights of the night, John Viante and Sean O'Connell fought in, I believe it was the 2nd actual fight of that night.
Yeah.
You know, but first one on Fight Pass, and that was a fantastic 3-round war. Those guys went at it. It was a heavyweight match. Or no, excuse me, light heavyweight. Pardon me. And you know, just a lot of action back and forth. Both guys go in, and John Viante pulled out the split decision win by scores of 29-28, 29-28 the second time, and then 29-28 for Sean O'Connell. Crowd was neither of them, neither of the guys was a local, but the crowd was vociferously booing the decision, and I actually did score it for O'Connell as well. So
Did you?
Yeah, that match did end up getting Fight of the Night honors. From the UFC. Yeah, I thought so. That, and as you know, we were talking about, which leads into the top match, or of the top matches of the main card, Hatsu Hioki and Charles Olivera. Also a really exciting one.
That was my favorite, definitely.
Yeah. A lot of back and forth scrambling between two established submission guys.
It was two BJJ black belts, two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts going against each other.
Yeah.
And usually I would frown upon a fight like this just because I love the stand-up game so much. But it was so entertaining so early on, and it stayed that way throughout the duration of the fight. I mean, it was submission attempt after submission attempt by both guys.
And great grappling on the feet as well as on the ground.
Yeah,
when they were on the feet, they were working for position and trying to take back and everything, and on the ground, same thing. Yeah, both guys attempted. And in the end, Charles Olivera was able to catch Hioki with in the second round at 4:32 with an anaconda choke.
I thought it was a Peruvian necktie.
You know what?
They said
Shout out to my Peruvians at home.
Kenny Florian did mention that. It was kind of a modified, he called it a Darce/modified Peruvian necktie. But really cool finish there.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising that Hatsu Hioki has never, ever been finished before. So kind of a very experienced veteran who never been finished. You kind of think, it kind of shocked to me that, whoa, that guy got finished. Yeah. So to me, it was kind of like, wow. Especially with that choke of
quite a first.
That's my reasoning for giving it Fight of the Night.
Yeah.
It's so cool seeing someone who, like Hatsu Hioki, who's been in the game for so long and is such a submission artist himself, but has never been submitted.
Yeah.
So you go into a fight like that, hoping, that a guy like Charles Oliveira can change that, and he did. He did. He had several submission attempts though early on. One of my favorites by Hatsu Hioki was, as soon as the fight started, he jumped a flying triangle.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, is it going to end as soon as it started? Like I thought it was over.
You don't see that very often at all.
No.
Yeah.
No. Very ballsy.
Yeah, and then Olivera was attempting. I'm looking at my notes, trying to find amidst my chicken scratch what he was going for, but Olivera attempted as well. What was it?
I don't have it down here,
hit him up
but
in
I
a
know.
power bomb or something.
Yeah. Maybe
think
something
so.
like that. And then there was a second round eye poke that took.
That almost took Olivera out of the whole thing.
Yeah, they were checking his eye. He couldn't even open it. They're like, look down, open it, open it. They thought he wasn't understanding English, I think.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just can't open my eye.
Yeah.
When they were,
there was a scramble on the ground, and as they were coming up, Hioki was reaching to base off of Olivera, and
natural.
Finger went in the eye. Yeah.
I think it was accidental. Sometimes we see things like that intentional for breaks to get a breath in or something like that, but this definitely wasn't that scenario. I think it was very innocent.
Yeah, but that was a really fun match. There was a lot of good action on the undercard as well. Anybody that has Fight Pass, by all means, there was an influx, as you know, we were overloaded with matches over the weekend. But if you got Fight Pass, which you can get for $9.99 monthly at UFC.com, definitely check out the prelims. They were a lot of fun. The prelims to the Huna Marquardt undercard were a lot of fun, and you get some good action there.
It's cool to see the second Fight of the Night get the Fight of the Night award, rather than the main card or someone more expected. It's cool to see one of those underdogs get the Fight of the Night award.
Goes to show you, a great match can happen up and down the card.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next we had...
That said,
segueing to Soa Palelei.
Soa
Palelei.
It's going to happen every time. I mean...
God bless you for it,
Are you going to admit that it's an accent different? Or...
Soa, I don't know. Not that difficult for me. I'm just saying.
Okay. Soa Palelei versus Jared Rosholt.
Versus,
What?
Daria. Continue, Daria.
Oh, you're allowing me. Thank you. That was so nice of you.
To be clear, folks, it is Daria, but
Daria.
We're always going Daria.
Yep.
Shout out to Mike Judge and Legacy of Beavis and Butthead. Look that up on Wiki, kids, if you have no idea what I'm talking about.
I barely do, but I do.
And more said about that. As opposed to Rosholt and Palelei, perhaps the better.
Seriously,
This one brought down the momentum of the show quite a bit, unfortunately. Rosholt went on and won by unanimous decision, and for the most part, it was
boring.
Yeah, you know, I hate to talk down about any match or any two people that step in a cage, but this one was not fireworks, to say the least, and unfortunately, it's kind of Rosholt's style.
I mean, most heavyweight fights, because they're so big and strong, usually tend to end in a knockout. And then when they do go the distance, they're usually pretty exciting, a la Marquadt, Antonio Silva. So,
yeah, Bigfoot.
Unfortunately, this fight fell under neither of those two.
Well, Rosholt with his wrestling pedigree.
I think this is one of the fights that Dana White looks at and is cringing the entire time, saying, "This is what I don't want."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he laid and prayed. There was Kenny Florian was doing the commentating, and at one point he's like, "Oh, and he's dragging him, and now he's dragging him, and now he's laying on him," and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so bad." Yeah,
well, Rosholt is known for imposing his power and his
not
will.
To take away from Rosholt and his skill, he is a well-known NCAA Division I championship wrestler. I mean, he's a guy with a lot of credentials and a lot of credit to be given.
Yeah.
But when he took it to the cage, I just don't like a lot of wrestlers' transformation.
It's one of those things where if you want to win, cool, that's cool. But if you want to get the money, get the title shots, get the notoriety, you got to
become popular with fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you've got to deliver.
Even some sort of likability. Yeah.
Palelei, though, I was kind of surprised, frankly. I saw a couple of times that it seemed like he was going for takedowns, and why you would take down specifically or attempt to try to take down a guy like Jake Rosholt, who will be able to turn that on you. And then that's where you're going to be.
Jared.
Excuse me. Jared, my bad.
I'm due for a mistake, so I mean, when I do.
Karma's coming to you.
Yeah.
Still, you know, not the strategy that I would have necessarily employed.
No,
to take Rosholt to the ground.
Not to take away from his ground game. Palelei has a good ground game as well, but it's like, I don't understand what either of them are going for there. Jared obviously was taking the easy route out, going with what he has been enforcing himself over the past 20+ years.
Bad position for both fighters and the fans, quite frankly.
But on a brighter note, the main event did give us a little bit more action.
Yeah. Nate Marquardt and James Huna.
What about that entrance?
Oh man, that was awesome.
Let's talk about that, right? The Maori Warriors.
Super cool. Is that the first time? Maybe
Probably.
not the first, but is that the first time that something like that, like
many years ago?
Like that?
Well, in the modern era, many years ago, if I remember correctly. Gosh, who is? I want to say either Kaoru Uno or Genki Sudo. Genki Sudo, when he fought in the UFC, and this was in the early part of the first decade of the 2000s, you know, Genki was known for his entrances. He would have wild costumes and stuff like that.
Still pretty cool. I mean, it was a cool visual, just kind of seeing that culture.
Energy. The crowd was going insane.
But just getting a peek of that culture, too, because obviously they are in a new country that they haven't been before, and just kind of seeing, like, wow, that's awesome.
That's what they're all about.
Especially because I think they do that on soccer matches, too. I think I've seen a few wrestlers do that. But just seeing that on that UFC stage, I thought that was cool. It kind of fight past out, rewind it a little bit just so I can watch it again.
Yeah, that was super cool. If you saw the looks on those guys' faces, I think I would be more scared to fight them than the actual fighters.
Yeah.
They were really into it. So A+ on performance. It's a shame, though, that James Huna couldn't bring home the win, because that would have been super awesome in his hometown with such an entrance. But it went to his opponent, but I think rightfully earned.
Marquardt was on fire here. He dropped him early with a knee, followed up with a takedown, and was on top.
Right.
Very busy from the clinch against the cage. And
First 30 seconds were amazing.
Marquardt, had his number, and Huna couldn't get things off. And then finally we saw. I'm taking a look here.
Nate
Huna almost escaped out the back. They were on the ground. Huna was trying to escape out the back.
I think he was just trying to stand up, if anything.
Yeah.
He was trying to get back on his feet.
Nate secured an arm bar and got the tap pretty quickly there. 4 minutes 34 in the first round.
Right. He was in. Nate was in Huna's guard, beating the crap out of Huna for a couple seconds, and I was like, that's awesome, because a lot of time when you're in someone's guard, they're going for the submission on you. They're looking for the Kimura or the triangle or the armbar, and they have dominance. But in MMA, it just goes to show you, that, I mean, clearly punches and you know, physical dominance.
Staying busy on top. Yeah, yeah. Now Nate's, you know, that was Nate's 51st match.
Wow.
Not a spring chicken. He's been
No.
around for a long time. You know, former King of Pancrase, Strikeforce champion at welterweight.
Yeah, he was a welterweight for a few years. I mean, did you ever see that fight
Is
with
it that
him?
long, really? I don't remember. I thought most of his fight at middleweight.
No, I'm saying I was gonna say, did you see his
years ago.
welterweight fight with Tyrone Woodley, where he just knocked the crap out of Woodley?
I
Oh my
vaguely
god,
remember it.
that was brutal. Just
Yeah.
a wicked uppercut. So yeah, he has had some success at welterweight, coming back up to middleweight. I mean,
I think I like him at middleweight.
Yeah.
James Huna though, he was known for being a light heavyweight. He looked
Right.
huge.
Came down.
He
looked
towered
so
over
big.
Nate.
I said that he looked like a baby Bigfoot Silva, which is not very baby if you
Yeah,
know Bigfoot
Littlefoot Silva, if you
yeah.
will.
Littlefoot Silva. that is James Tehuna. No, even like the looks though, like that long jaw line, they looked little. I saw a little resemblance.
I'd have to look up if he suffers from giantism at all.
No,
Maybe a little bit, no?
I don't think so. I mean, we could look it up, but I don't think so.
I'm really not sure.
I think it was just a look difference. Maybe they're related somewhere, some way.
To be continued, perhaps, or not.
Who would you put Nate Marquardt up against next?
Next.
You got any thoughts on that? I don't know. It's a good question. It comes to mind. I'm not quite sure.
What about you, Daria? Let me try to get the camera that way while I look up on my trusty computer.
Why he Wikipedia?
He's
why
going to
he
go cheat
Googles.
it here. The rankings.
That is not right.
I would put him up against.
I've got. Let's just throw one out here. Yoel Romero.
Actually, you know what?
I like him against Yoel Romero.
Actually,
Let's see.
what I was gonna say is if Henderson goes back down to middleweight, and probably put that match together.
It's interesting. Yeah. Although it's
Far fetched if that happens.
I'm seeing, and I'm cheating over here, guys. On George's computer screen, I don't see Nate listed in the top 15 there. Am I wrong about that there?
No, you're right. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
He's not. No, he's not ranked in the top.
I'm trying to remember who's actually free these days. Munoz?
or maybe
Is Munoz booked on anything yet?
No,
if
because
he
he
doesn't
just
have
lost.
a future fight, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe CB Dollaway. He just came across a win.
Dollaway, yep, that's right. But I'm thinking somebody in that 10 to 15 range for the middleweights.
He's definitely been up there in rankings before, and before the rankings were official. I mean, the guy had a title shot up against Anderson Silva.
He's fought the best of them.
He's beaten.
Absolutely.
I think he knocked out Damian Maya with like a brutal right one time.
Maya, you did it. We got you. Bam! All right, we're all screw ups.
Air five.
Air five there.
Love it.
I am leaving.
Yeah, right.
We all love each other.
Well, let's leave New Zealand and let's talk about San Antonio. Huh?
I think I would say out of the two events, San Antonio won my heart.
Did you?
If either, yeah.
it?
I mean, I liked a few fights on each, but I think San Antonio. I'm a fan of Cub Swanson, so that could be it. He was
Yep.
he was fun to watch.
Who headlined the
especially-
fight against Jeremy
Yep.
Stevens?
Yeah, segue right into that. Yeah. So Fight Night
Yeah.
in San Antonio, Texas.
Yep.
Cub Swanson versus Jeremy Stevens.
I believe, guys, I could be wrong about this. This may be the first time that they were in San Antonio as well.
What was it?
It
UFC's
says
debut
it's
in
the
San
first
Antonio?
time in a while.
Okay.
Okay. So it's
I'm
been
sorry,
there.
no. It is the first time UFC has been there.
Yeah, well, MMA has been there, obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
Cub Swanson
two town debuts.
ranked number 4. Jeremy Stevens ranked number 11. Then we had Kelvin Gastelum and Nico Musoke. And Cezar Ferreira, Andrew Craig.
Cesar Mutante.
Yeah, Mutante is
Is
what
it
I'm saying.
really Maya?
Which
Maya?
is-
Maya? Damian Maya? What did I say?
You said Maya.
You said Maya.
And how
it's
is it?
Maya.
Maya.
What's the difference?
Really?
A syllable.
Okay.
Vowels.
Okay. I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
No, I'm just
Continue.
answering your question, brother.
I'm sorry, it's still stuck in my head.
Well, again, you know,
And Ricardo Lamas and Hakran Diaz.
yeah, and so
Let's start from the bottom there.
yeah, I was gonna say, you know, the main card to this show was unfortunately Decision City.
Yeah.
And not really the fireworks, you know, Griffin Bonner kind of decision.
Right.
These were pretty straightforward
But as
for the
you-
most part.
Yeah, I completely agree. But as you see, you know, better and better level of competition in UFC and MMA in general, sometimes you come to realize that when the skill level is so evenly matched and so high, going the distance isn't always a bad thing because you're seeing such good technique and such good skill overall.
If there's action there,
Right.
and at least one guy would stay busy in each of these matches that we're
Right.
talking about. But they were for the most part. I'm looking at some of the scores and a lot of 30-27s. Ricardo Lamas versus Hakran Diaz. 30-27 on 2 judges' scorecard.
All unanimous.
Yeah. That's the other thing, unanimous decisions. There were a couple of splits in the lower part of the main card. Clint Hester over Antonio Brago Neto,
Right.
and Joe Ellenberger over James Muntasri, who I should say his name. I should know his name more clearly and better because he's a local star here.
Yeah.
Shout out to James and the Black House crew.
Yep.
But the undercard again, really the prelims really delivered as well. Ray Borg had at 125. Ray Borg was his second UFC fight. Defeated Shane Howell, who came in on a last-minute notice, but it was a sweet rear naked choke. 2 minutes 17 seconds into the first, we had a very interesting pair of finishes in the next 2 fights, both at 38 seconds in the first round. Cody Gibson knocked out, it was TKO of Johnny Bedford, which was a little bit controversial. Might have been the early stoppage. There was a lot of talk, about that.
It was just one of those things where, like, the ref hesitated, and then, like, he puts his arm there. Like, it's one of those things where once you put your arm in, it's
Right.
over. Once you touch the fighter, it's usually over.
He didn't
Right.
commit
And then
at
he
first,
hesitated.
but then he did commit because no other strikes. Cody Gibson knocked down Johnny Bedford with an overhand right.
Right.
It was more as Bedford was kind of, I don't want to say back reeling, but moving backwards, and he fell on his butt. And apparently, I saw his hands drop as he went down. It from certain vantage point, it seemed like he was knocked out there. But then he quickly woke up and it seemed like he was ready, kind of in open guard when he landed.
Right.
And that was a little bit of the hesitation. Kerry Hatley apparently saw his eyes roll back and that he was out, and that's when he jumped in. But because he recuperated so fast on the ground, he was in open guard and had his hands up by that point. That's when Hatley said, well, maybe I should let this go. But by that point, he had made his decision and had to stick with it. Yeah. And so Johnny Bedford was pretty upset about that. And that happens. It happens in MMA.
Hard position to be in.
Yeah, it's
It really
tough.
is the job I would never want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, not cool, but, like, he was very more adamant about the actual money and making a living aspect than the actual record itself. If he loses, he loses. But the way he lost, he was very, this is money off my family,
Right. His
housing,
complaints is what
children,
you're saying.
that he had a life that he relied on. And just for it to go to that, I mean, it's one thing to get knocked out, but the way he lost, I mean, I completely understand. So just kind of
Perhaps we'll
very
see a
understandably
rematch.
upset.
He
And-
was looking good in that first 30 seconds or so.
Right. Something you train as a fighter is quick recovery for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Don't give the ref a chance to be like, okay, this guy's done.
Yeah.
So it sucks that he was going to recover quickly, but it was already over at that point. But maybe the ref saw something once again that we didn't see because he has
The best seat in the house.
best seat in the house,
Right.
next to Bruce Buffer, who
Yep.
who was tweeting about how he will never gets old that he has the best seat in the house. Bruce Buffer right there against the cage every time.
Yeah.
Lucky
Well,
guy.
the next match as well was a bit more decisive. Carlos Diego Ferreira defeated Colton Smith by submission. Tripped him down with a judo trip. Got a rear naked choke from the side, and Colton Smith tapped. There was no debating that one.
No.
So you had some great action and early finishes earlier in the show,
And
and then later on, the main card happened. We just, as I said, got into Decision City. And
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about that.
The first one we had was a featherweight bout. It was Ricardo Lamas versus Hakran Diaz. Hakran Diaz trains with Jose Aldo.
Novo Uña fighter.
Yep.
Yeah. Lamas seemed to have his number, though, throughout the whole time. Lamas,
Well, Lamas beat Cub Swanson, if I recall,
from a while
Yeah,
back.
I think 4 years ago.
4 years
Yeah.
ago. I mean, still.
So,
Yep.
so, you're
The
absolutely
history
right.
is there. But he's coming off of his match against challenging for Jose Aldo's title. And this is his first match back?
Look at him grinning. He
Yeah.
grins at your
It's one of those things where it's like, you don't have to be afraid of me correcting you, but I will.
This show is going to be even more confusing on the podcast when they can't see us
Do you think
looking
we're
at each
afraid
other.
of you?
You look afraid.
Do I look afraid?
You look afraid.
Looks are deceiving.
So they say.
God, get a room, guys. Come on, let's talk about fights here, huh?
Anyway, I thought Hakran Diaz was having trouble finding his distance. It was like he wanted to get Ricardo Lamas at the end of his jab, and he just kept missing
He was
by
either
those
too close or too far
few
and
inches.
missing. Yeah.
And that's an annoying spot to be as a fighter. It's like that defeat in your head, like, oh, I can't even get my hands on him type thing.
Yeah.
So that's why also a lot of fighters, I think, play like the hop and skip game in the first round, is to mentally defeat the opponent. Like, you can't touch me, you can't touch me. They study them, then they come back to the second round.
Oh, yeah.
And bring it on.
In each match, every round almost is a new match unto itself. You know?
Right.
I mean, unless the momentum is going, there is that, but at least it can be a new match. I'll put it like that. You can lose one, come back, and if you and your coaches can make the right adjustments in that 1 minute between them, you can come out a completely new fighter.
We'll talk about that in the main event. That happened.
Yeah, exactly. But Lamas
definitively.
really was busier in this match. He just
More aggressive.
more aggressive, busier,
Absolutely.
pushed the pace, and went on to win by unanimous decision. It was pretty straightforward. Really, I'm looking at round 3. Really had that body clinch. On,
Round 3, he wrestled.
On Diaz. Yeah.
He went back to his roots. He started wrestling, and that's when it really became definitive. He was complete cage dominance. Just had control the whole time was the main thing that I put down here. His movement seemed better than Hakran's. Like I said, closing the distance, finding that distance, finding his range.
Yeah.
Just overall the dominant fighter, I think.
Yeah, it's the reason why we saw Lamas, rise to the top when he was on his run for the title, and so now we're seeing him build up again. Seems like he hasn't really lost a step too much.
No, I don't think so. I think he looked good.
Yeah.
Then we had middleweight
Yep.
Cezar Ferreira versus Andrew Craig.
Another
Vitor Belfort was in.
Vitor coached Cezar Mutante in the first season of Ultimate Fighter Brazil, and apparently, they've stuck together. So it seems.
Right in the beginning, there, Cezar did the standing guillotine, jumped the guard, tried to bring him down. It didn't work, but I always love seeing something ambitious like that right in the first round.
Yeah, not exactly the most exciting, thrilling match.
No.
Although
Until the end.
Yeah, until that third round. That third round was good, eh? But Mutante fought very safely.
Sorry, you just sounded Canadian.
I was gonna,
That was
so
good,
sorry.
eh? I heard that too. I just didn't say anything. 'cause
Hey,
I'm not
shout out
mad.
to my Great White North. I grew up right on the border. My folks still live right on the border. I got mad love for Canada.
Yeah, maybe he has some, Canadian in him.
Oh, sorry, Boutet,
No worries, eh?
Sorry, eh?
Yeah. I keep the Great White North. I consider myself honorary Canadian. Big up to Fubar, Terry, and Diener, and Bob and Doug
Honorary
McKenzie.
Canadian.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll give it to you.
But so in the match, both these guys fought safely. I think they were looking for their openings. Didn't really get a whole lot off.
Andrew was bloody right away in the first round.
Yep,
I think he was
opened
bleeding
up-
from the top of his scalp or his
It
temple.
looked like
You
the
couldn't
temple.
tell, but
Yeah,
it was, he had the
left temple, I believe.
okay.
But then in that third round, that's when you really, even though Mutante was definitely in control.
With that body scissors.
Yeah.
Not that many people can get up when done correctly. I mean, I think it was done correctly, so for Andrew Craig to still kind of recover from that, dude, kudos to that guy. And for him
yeah.
to,
He was
Really-
in a body triangle on let's explain. He was in a body triangle against the cage for I didn't count.
Mutante
but
was against
2
the
minutes.
cage and had Craig in that triangle,
Yeah.
and that'll kill your cardio. I mean, those guys are already into the third round there. The 10 to 15 minute mark.
And he was fighting the rear naked.
Craig is
back and
throwing
forth.
elbows, trying to nail the back of, throw elbows to the back, trying to nail Mutante in the face. And I think he was landing quite a few.
He was.
His face was bloody.
defense from that position was so admirable. It was like he wasn't giving. He was swinging like hell. Whether it was hammer fists, elbows, he wasn't giving up in that position. It's a very defeating position. Someone's on your back. He has a body triangle, which is so much tighter than just having your hooks in. I mean, you're squeezing the rib cage if it's tight enough.
You're already down 2 rounds to nothing at that point.
Right, that's
true. Craig somehow got out of that.
landed
then
with a couple amazing shots.
Turned around with a head
Knocked him
kick. I
down.
remember once they got to their feet,
As
Craig
soon
turns
as-
around
as soon
and
as they
bam to
stood
the
up.
face, eh? Shoot, there it is again. I was gonna say, what's in the water today? It must be the water.
It's our filtered LA water.
That's not water.
Oops. All right. So,
Yeah, but as soon as he stood back up from that escape, you would think he would be so tired because it's so tiring being put in that position. He gets up, immediate head kick. I don't even think he had his balance yet, and just rushed him into the cage.
yeah, it made for a very good last minute or minute and a half, I'd say, of the match.
Right.
That otherwise was pretty one-sided and uneventful.
Right.
And then in the main semi-main, we had Kelvin Gastelum versus Nico Musoke, and that was another. That went to decision as well. Well, as we said, all of them unanimous decision. Kelvin Gastelum walks away on scores of, let's see here. What are my notes?
I think it was
Where are my notes? Darn it.
29-28, 29-28, and 28-29.
Yeah.
But it was unanimous.
Yeah, Nico won the first round. It was right, and Kelvin came back and won the second.
Actually,
third,
no, I'm sorry.
believe.
I think it was all.
It was 29-28.
Yeah, I think all the judges scored at 29-28.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Kelvin Gastelum, I love Kelvin Gastelum. I mean,
The little
here's-
train that
the
could,
little
right?
engine that could. Yeah, here's a guy who alumni, not only just alumni, he won the not tough enough,
Ultimate
Fighter. Jones versus Sonnen, picked last by Chael Sonnen. Here's a guy who beat everyone there. I mean, here's a guy
Including the favorite Uriah Hall.
including Uriah Hall. Gastelum undefeated, just young, 22, 23-year-old. I mean, here's a guy who
22.
I think that they're really grooming him to try to be the next big welterweight. Won the show as a middleweight, goes down to welterweight.
Yeah, and not to mention Uriah Hall was on a roll on that
man.
season. He was
Yeah.
sending guys to the hospital left and right. They make jokes that every guy went to the hospital that fought him on that show. And then here's the underdog, picked last on the Ultimate Fighter, ends up winning
Yeah.
the entire thing against Uriah Hall.
Yeah,
so
so
I think that gives him.
So I really think in some ways they are grooming him, kind of not throwing him to the wolves immediately, but still giving him good fighters.
Right.
But at the end, I don't think he was that impressive. I think he was dominant. I think it was one-sided, but not as one-sided as I would have expected it to be.
Right. I think that Nico had a distinct range advantage on him. I mean, he clearly had the reach advantage, and Kelvin's fight was to get in close and to do some dirty boxing, and he did in the later rounds.
Yeah.
At first, I think he was finding his distance, really trying to figure out, okay, how do I fight an opponent like this? I think he has such a stocky build.
Yeah.
So it's awkward when you're fighting someone who has a really athletic,
Longer
lankier
reach.
build.
But that's something that he has to face with everybody. I mean,
course.
Uriah Hall is
Right.
bigger, and he dealt with that.
That's true.
And Kelvin's bread and butter is going to be closing the distance and either getting that takedown, and using his power, or that dirty boxing, and throwing uppercuts and body shots and things. And he did give that first round, but came back in the second and third.
In the third, he had some awesome kicks. They were you could see they were really hurting Nico.
Yeah. He started taking off there. So that one, Gastelum continues to work up the rankings. What we said, he's number 11 right now in the
I think
UFC
right now
rankings.
he's number 11.
Yeah.
Where do we go from there with him? You think?
Welterweight.
Come on, hit that computer,
trying
man.
not to.
Open up. I want you to.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't know.
I mean, if he's ranked number 11, I mean, you got, I want to say Don Hyun Kim.
Stun gun.
Yeah. Oh, no, he's hurt.
Dong
No,
Hyun
he's
Kim.
hurt. He's the one that just got hurt. That was supposed to fight in China, correct?
Isn't he fighting?
Or was it?
No, he's fighting Woodley.
No, he's
boy.
fighting Woodley. Okay, Hector
Yeah.
Lombard is the one that got hurt.
Hector Lombard got hurt, pulled out against Dong Hyun Kim, and now his teammate Tyrone Woodley is fighting Dong Hyun Kim.
I say put him up against Damian Maia.
Yeah, that's what we said in the trailer. Damian Maia would be a good position for him. He's ranked number 10, I think.
Number 8.
Is he 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Ellenberger. I mean, Ellenberger coming off a loss. I was mentioning, though, it's kind of like a no win for Ellenberger. He wins, he beat a guy who was on the way up. He loses, his third loss in a row. So, I mean, it's kind of tough.
If he loses, it puts him in a really bad position.
Yeah.
If he wins, it puts him where he is still. I mean, it's not like a...
And then with Kelvin, I mean, I think I've gone on record and saying sometimes a loss can be the best thing for your career. So if you put up against Kelvin, then who knows, maybe that loss can maybe just help you.
Help
as far as-
Ellenberger?
No, help
Help Kelvin?
Kelvin Gastelum.
Well,
what,
if he's
in what
undefeated
sense?
now, then it kind of takes the wind out of his sails.
Well, I mean,
you know?
I'm saying though, but like it's like you
Granted, he
lost.
fights a higher level guy.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you lost when you put up in that situation. So now what? Now you're gonna try to prevent that from happening again.
Okay.
Sometimes you just
so
get
you
better.
mean mentally preparing better?
Yeah,
Okay.
like I think I said it last show.
Going back to the
Where
drawing board.
look at St. Pierre or Cain Velasquez. They lost the last fight. I'm sorry, since their last loss, they've gone on a destructive tear where it's like there's no way they're going to lose against some of these guys. And who knows, maybe that might be the same for Kelvin Gastelum if he loses. But I think it's more of a no-lose situation for Kelvin, no-win situation for Ellenberger if they ever fight next.
I agree. I'd say Damian Maia over
Wrestler
Ellenberger.
versus wrestler.
Especially because Maia, I think...
He's going to fight a ground guy in either of those scenarios.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially with Maia, it's like he's there. He's not... I don't think he's ever going to get that title shot, but he's still kind of in the middle of the pack where
Right.
he's still good enough, but not that guy, you know?
Yeah, I'm mad that Hector Lombard got hurt, and I'm not just speaking from a biased opinion because I know him, but he's a good contender in that top. I think he's ranked number 6. I was really looking forward to seeing him move up between those top 5 guys.
Yeah, he hasn't had the run that a lot of people expected him to when he came to the UFC.
He had some jitters, I think, in the first couple fights in the UFC, and then I think ever since he's been proving himself.
Yeah.
Well,
And
he fought at
dropping
middleweight
weight.
for a little bit, so ever since he came to welterweight, he's been kind of, like you said, just on that
Right,
tear.
yeah, on the up now. I'm excited. Well, it should be interesting seeing his teammate take over. Isn't that that's like a weird thing? I mean, it happens a lot, but a teammate taking over for your fight. If he wins,
Rare at this high level of the sport.
that's what I mean. Like when you're in the top 15 rankings and you're giving up a fight to your teammate. I mean, that's a thing. I would say to be talked about.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel obviously you
Well,
want
it
him
works
to
out
win?
for the coach. You know,
That's
nothing
true.
changes there too much.
Ricardo Lamborio, I'm sure, is very happy.
Then we have our main event.
It's featherweight.
Cub
bout,
Swanson, and Jeremy Stevens. Cub goes on to win by unanimous decision.
Oh, by decision. Good.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
49-46, 49-46, and 48-47 were the scores, which to me seemed a little bit farther out
Yeah,
than
I agree.
when people were talking about this match, I saw it delayed viewing, but it sounded like people made it out to me to be like a match of the year contender, really close, or rather just the opposite. Cub Swanson's coming out party once again, and I didn't see it really as a landslide.
It wasn't definitive either way, I don't think.
I
think
would have given it a 48-47, but I don't see the 49-46s.
Cub Swanson won, but I don't see the 49-46s either. I definitely gave the first 2 rounds to Jeremy Stevens.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
But
No.
then Cub came back in the second half.
What Cub did in the last 3 was way more than Jeremy did in the first 2. I'll say that. And it was 3 versus 2, so obviously it's a natural win. But what Cub did in the last round, if he would have fought, he said he went to his corner and he's like, how am I doing? Do you want me to turn it up a little bit? And his
Yeah.
coach was like, hell yeah, I want you to turn it up a little bit. And then he came back out.
Ask a dumb question, quite frankly.
And you could tell that conversation went on because he notably turned it up and came out and was just stronger than ever.
I mean, he kept throwing those cartwheel kicks, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Looks like he landed a few of them, too.
Yeah, he did. It's so strange. Like, is it the fact, I was thinking about it today, like, how do those kicks land? Because you obviously see them coming. You're watching a guy do a cartwheel. It's not as fast as a guy throwing a jab right from his chest. So is it the fact that you think it's coming from somewhere else?
Well, it's
Let's
a very...
try it.
There you go.
Come here.
Get
Right
up on there.
Right there.
Get up right on the counter here.
Plexiglass.
Yeah, it'll hold her. I don't know about you, but it's a kick that you don't see too often in MMA. I think it's derives from capoeira background, or certainly used in capoeira.
It's a show move. I mean, people
yeah.
do it.
And once in a while, it does work. I think Brian. Gosh, who am I thinking of here? His name's on the tip of my tongue. Training in Australia, American guy. He lives in Australia and now in Thailand with Tiger Muay Thai. Brian Ebersol. Brian Ebersol will throw that every once in a while in his matches.
Is he the guy that always has a chest hair pointing up?
That's who I'm talking about. Exactly.
That's him.
Yeah. But I think, you know, when your body movement, throwing this kick, you're putting your hand down on the ground. And so naturally, I think the opponent's reaction is possibly, okay, this guy is going for a low leg kick, almost like a sweep.
Right,
you know?
right.
It fakes movement of a sweep, and then you're throwing
That's
that
what I was
outside
thinking.
leg higher.
As a fighter, you know he's not going for something like that. You know it's a cartwheel kick, but I think maybe natural human mentality takes over.
Yeah, well,
Instinct, and you're like, oh my God, he's going down. I'm going down too. He's going to hit me down, and then
that's like the fake of the Superman punch.
Exactly.
You know, you think that you're getting a kick when in fact you're taking a punch to the face. So.
We're still gonna try it though.
After the show, yes, the blooper reel.
Oh,
UFC AfterBuzz
you
blooper
best
reel.
believe we're going to try it.
Not on me. I'll referee this one.
All right, sounds good to me.
So, you know, of the two shows, there's a lot for us to talk about, you know, to digest. A lot of people did not react well to these shows, you know, among the fan community and online. You're seeing a lot of discussion about how these shows were watered down, and neither of them really was bang for the buck.
Well, here's what they say. I mean, they're fans that most of the, I shouldn't say most of the fans, but a lot of the casual fans know maybe the top 50 or so guys. And here are two events in the same night, you know, however many fights that is total, with no real names. You know what I'm saying? So if they didn't know James Tahuna or
here's the tricky part, though.
Marquardt.
How do we define names? Names can be guys in those top 10, top 5, you know, rankings, or they can also be names that are recognizable to the casual fan. And I would agree with you. These are not guys that typically are going to be known to the casual fan.
Right.
But that brings in the very interesting conversation about whether this is good for the sport or whether it's not. You know, is it going to help the UFC's bottom line, and is it not? In my opinion, it's more a conversation, or the critical factor is it's penny wise and pound foolish. Over the long run, here's my interpretation of where the UFC is coming from, and I could be wrong. I don't talk to anybody there that, you know, would give me this kind of insight. But when you step back and you look at the marketing strategy, they've got Fight Pass now, which is offering us more fights historically as well as throughout the world. They're expanding Ultimate Fighter series to different countries. They've had them in China, and most people don't even know that. Brazil is 3 seasons in, going into a 4th. I'm trying to remember where else. We got Mexico, correct?
Mexico's coming up soon.
Yeah. So the point is that the UFC is very clearly expanding internationally, and not just in bringing a show there, but establishing a presence there, a long-term presence. Given that, you've got, they need to do shows that address that local market, you know, whether it's New Zealand, Berlin, the Philippines. Have they run the Philippines? I feel like they've talked about it for a long time.
I don't think so.
Not
Not
yet,
quite
though.
yet, yeah. But where am I thinking? In the Middle East as well.
Abu Dhabi.
Dubai, yeah,
Dubai.
Abu Dhabi.
Dhabi.
Pardon
They have
me.
some big shows there.
So these different places that they have to hit, you know, they're bringing in local fighters there. I think it makes sense in this regard. I'm not saying there's a final answer. There's good and bad to the whole thing. Bad is obviously we have way too many matches, way too many shows and fighters to keep track of. And
Right.
anybody that tries to watch every show is going to get super frustrated,
Well,
like us.
That's
you know?
the thing. Go ahead.
But all this said, the UFC now has done these shows in all these different countries, and they've got fighters tied into contracts there, into UFC contracts. They're now UFC fighters. They may not be ready for Las Vegas or Toronto or Montreal,
Right.
but these are guys that they can grow under the UFC banner.
Well,
you
that's
know?
the thing. When they go to these new countries, they have to get their homegrown guys. They have
Absolutely.
to establish their homegrown
Yeah.
heroes. They have to get their GSPs and their Anderson Silvas, just like we had to work for it.
I mean, you got to think too, where it's like, I think the Auckland show drew like 9,000. Like, how many
Right.
of those people would have not gone had Tahuna not been in the main event? So just
That's true.
Well, it being the first time, usually, as
Yeah.
we know, the history is the UFC will do well in their first show, and then afterwards it'll drop off or not, depending on who's in the main.
Right.
But yeah, here's the thing: the UFC has only so many bona fide stars, and
Right.
you can tour them around to different places only so many times. They're going to fight only so many times in a year. not as many times as the UFC is hitting all these different countries. So you gotta get guys that are local. I mean, it serves two masters. One, they're local draws. Two, you're building up guys that are local draws, but also you can build them up into eventually getting to the big shows, like in Vegas or Montreal or wherever.
Right, or maybe
you know?
those shows, like in Auckland, New Zealand, will eventually be huge shows, because maybe Auckland, New Zealand will eventually become huge UFC fans.
Let me ask you this though, and I know this is a UFC, show, but a lot of the things that you mentioned are very much so the same formula that they use for professional wrestling. And I say that because, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you market wrestling the way same way you market MMA. So I say that because, do you think with all these little shows, it kind of brings out the sport aspect more of UFC, kind of like, well, we don't just need the big names. We need the smaller shows, the smaller arenas, the not so big, superstars guys. Because for example, sports, NFL, it sells itself.
Yeah.
NBA, it sells itself. It doesn't matter who's playing. It's still the sport itself.
And
so
that's the case for the UFC, at least in the first time.
Yeah, so I think again, we're not there. So I think with UFC, I think it just brings out the sport aspect more if you have a lot of these guys maybe no one really knows of, because it's like, well, it's UFC. We want.
Oh, you see, in other words, you're seeing these guys grow up the ladder.
Yeah,
That's what you mean by bringing out the sport aspect?
Yeah, that, and like I said, just kind of having it where we're a sport, so we need to be on all the time, the same way the other sports are on all the time.
Okay, so consistency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's just
something
like
to be said for
when
that.
you watch a pilot of a new TV show. You watch it, you're like, I don't know these actors. These are new, because you've been watching Dexter or Homeland for 5 seasons.
Right.
And then you eventually adapt to the characters, and you're like, oh my God, I love James, or I love her, or I love her. And you grow to love them. But at first, it was this foreign thing that you weren't so comfortable with. I think it's the same thing with any sport. Once we introduce these guys, like Marquardt, he's been around a while, so that's a bad example. But James Huna, once they really get established in these countries, they're going to be the new fan favorite. They have to build their own favorites. They have to build their own set of fighters that they follow, whether it's the same set of fighters that Americans follow or whether it's their own niche.
We'll see that. There definitely are favorites. Obviously, James Huna got a lot of support from. I wonder if that whole Maori tribal introduction was something done by the UFC, or if James and his guys asked to do that.
I
Who
was
knows?
wondering the same thing. I think it felt like he was with the spirits, and he was bringing something from New Zealand to us. But
it was nice showmanship, and clearly the fans were behind him. The fans will be behind Mark Hunt when he fights Big Roy Nelson a couple months from now.
right, yeah, absolutely.
That's in Australia, right? Or is that?
No, that's Japan. That's Tokyo.
Oh yeah.
Saitama. The other thing I noted as we were here, Colin McGregor. There's another case in point. They're going back to Ireland for the first time in 5 years. I'd argue mostly because of Colin, because they want to build him up, and also because it makes Connor. Jeez Louise. Excuse me. I'm going home getting some sleep after this one, guys. I apologize.
Make sure you bring your mom ice cream first.
Yes, yeah, that too. But I was going to say, watching these shows, the undercards, two things. One, a lot of times the undercard matches, when guys are so hungry to impress, that you get really captivating, exciting matches in the prelims and the undercard. And that was the case on this show. I point to Ray Borg as having a great performance there, and also there was a 55er, I believe, Australian, Jake Matthews. Really exciting kid. I can see him as a guy that they're looking to build around. I think he's 19 years old.
Wow.
I forgot. It was a first round finish for him, but great performance, good look. Spoke well, young guy, really exciting. His dad was his cornerman, which to me
that's
says,
always awesome.
Yeah, which to me says, it's a nice family affair, so he's got a good support network.
Right.
I can see a bright future for that guy.
Right.
And that's what you're going to have with a lot of these localized regional shows. Overseas, the international shows.
Right.
And eventually you will see them brought into the U.S. The mainstream shows here.
I'm sure, and that's what it's all about right now for these guys that are getting their first shot in all these different countries, is getting out there and making a name for themselves.
Yeah.
The UFC does, I think, subliminally or intentionally, make a name for certain guys that they have hope in and faith in. But it's also your responsibility as a fighter to market yourself and your marketing team's responsibility.
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to get out there and be the guy that talks a lot of crap, like the Diaz brothers, but it works for them? Or are you going to be the guy that goes out there and is Mr. Noble, like, you know, GSP maybe? Or, you know, what kind of fighter are you going to be? Because at the end of the day, I will compare it to WWE. I will compare it to wrestling for once. You are a character. You're a face for these people, these fans to love and cheer for.
Your talent, your personality, who you are. Yeah, you are your own brand.
I mean, 2 words, Chael Sonnen.
Yep.
I mean, here's a guy who was a virtual nobody until one fight, and then the guy was a self-made man. That guy just, a lot of the things, don't get me wrong, it was all crazy. But honestly, it took me a while, and I was like, wow, this guy is a genius.
Yeah.
This guy probably has a job for life with not only the UFC, but Fox. I mean, if you want that kind of career, I mean, you know, Chael Sonnen is the guy to model your career after.
Played his cards right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But it was something that he evolved. It didn't come right away. It was middle through his career.
No, it didn't.
And it's something that I think he had to fine-tune and test. Now, fine-tune along the way. And he started out playing a bad guy, and that literally was his thing, playing a bad guy, and then realizing his gift of gab. He was able to, I mean, using the pro wrestling parlance, talk about turning babyface when you want to or heel when you need to. But that's different than a lot of these kids. Yeah, they got to find their own voice. We'll say they find their own voice, what speaks to their brand. I don't think you necessarily need to take on an archetype, you know?
Okay.
But, you know, guys like Conor McGregor, he knows his voice, his character, you know? Same thing with a lot of these other kids. We'll see that in the future. That's part of this whole thing. It's a company selling personalities.
Right.
And who do you want to root for? That's what it comes down to.
It's not a team sport.
Yeah.
It's one of the only ones that's not. So
the flip side of the saturation is that, damn, there's way too many fights to watch, man.
Yeah, it is
I started
hard.
this at 10 a.m. and it's 6 p.m. now that we're on, and I've been watching fights all day.
It's exhausting.
Good
for
problem to have, I suppose, but it's a problem.
commentators.
So,
I mean, as long as we see quality maintained, and I'm not talking about them all being knockout fights, but
yeah.
just quality fighters. As
Yeah.
long as they're all.
Go on.
No, just had to point that out. That was cute. We were rapping.
Yeah, we're getting the signal. So let's talk real quickly about a couple things coming up, and then wrap this thing up.
Super exciting events coming up. We have
This Saturday, UFC 175. Right?
Another
175?
weekend, another double shot weekend. You know, the matches, the hits just keep on coming, right?
as Jay Tan says, UFC 175. We have Ronda Rousey on that card.
We have Chris Weidman versus Lyoto Machida. Alexis Davis challenges for the women's title against Ronda. Uriah Faber and Alex Caceres.
I haven't heard about him in a while. And then we have the Ultimate Fighter finale.
Yep, Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn going third shot, this time at 145 as opposed to 55.
Let's see if anything changes.
Then mid-July, man, we got Fight Night on July 16th, a.k.a. International J-Day. Fight Night July 19th.
Birthday?
Yeah.
Yep, double birthday. Talking about double shot. Hey, man.
Oh, isn't it both your birthdays on the same day?
That's right, July
Oh,
16th.
Happy birthday, boys.
Thank you so much.
And then, you know, another one. Let's see, I got 1, 2, 3. Wow, 3 matches, 3 shows in July, and then one that first weekend of August. That's UFC 176 at the Staples Center.
Awesome.
Hopefully we'll
right
be
here
there.
in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so we're going to be around for quite a bit, guys. A lot of matches coming up, and we'll be here to talk about them with you.
Get your plugs in, and then I will tell them when we will be back.
George?
Do you want to plug anything?
Me? Yeah, I guess so. The book. I guess we didn't mention the book.
Maria
Buy that
Menounos.
book.
Buy the book.
The Every Girl's Guide to
I
Diet
already read
and
it.
Fitness.
Me personally, you can follow me on Twitter at ghermoza. Go to podomatic.com. Follow the Chris Kloss Show. It's fun. It's exciting.
Is this legal? Gosh, I don't have my book with me, but I want everybody to go to Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble or AscendBooks.com. Buy this book. Thank you, man. Is this legal? For you MMA buffs, this is the story of the creator of the UFC, Art Davie, and his walk towards building UFC 1. It's a really fascinating and fun, easy read. Aside from that, Mom, please tell Dad to change his Twitter password. I keep still getting spam DMs from him. Kind of getting sick of it.
God. Speaking of Art Davies' book, I just got my copy, and I'm so excited to dive into reading that and learning about the history of the UFC. On top of that, DariaBerenato.com. Follow me there. Guys, we will be back next Wednesday, I believe. We have to confirm that with our scheduling guy, Stephen Phillip in the back. UFC 175 and the Ultimate Fighter finale.
We got one other screw up right under the wire.
What?
UFC.
I said that.
You said UFC.
Now they're making shit up. Anyway, we will be back next Tuesday or Wednesday. Jay Tan, George Hermoza, Daria Berenato.
So long from the Screw Up Show.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
I swear to God.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews,
Absolutely
subscribe to our channel here.
What
and be
was
sure
wrong
to
with
share
us
your
there,
opinion
lady?
on the episode in the
What did you
comment
do to
section
us?
below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again.
It was
Buzz you later.
botchamania. How bad did it come off? Did we cover it okay? Yeah?